Okay, so this video here is going to talk about the importance of understanding back history. And you could also call it genetic hiccups, and also a good point of what you see isn't necessarily what you get. So that you guys can understand, because this even applies to, like, pure species. You could use, if you just kind of take this out of context, I know this is betas, but this is actually the best demonstration and the strongest that you could have. So it's very blatant. But anyway, so these are all my fish. They're all my bloodlines. It was quite a journey, obviously. But so these are the pictures that I selected out. I screenshot some of them. I'm sorry, the print quality is just absolutely, you know what. I will post in the comments section pictures, other than if Instagram won't let me, but on Facebook I will, on my main page and wherever it's shared. But so I want to talk about why it's so important to not just select a fish based on what you see. Okay, and I'll walk you through a little bit of a genetic journey too here for a moment, just so you guys can actually understand some additional things, some concepts and mindsets to have that are important. But just the same, so yeah, I guess we'll just dive in here. So let me start with this. So this here, and I know that it's not good print quality. Bear with me with all these. Like I said, in the comments, I'll show you so you can actually see in detail and the true qualities of what this was. But you will notice that there is yellow here in there. This is essentially a really, really spunky BSG, Black Star Galaxy, bordering on the line of, you can see it's almost wincing through to black candy, right? And so this line here that I was already breeding and working with, so this here I spliced into a red line, right? And yellow, for those of you who don't know, getting an underbase of yellow is extremely hard, like really, really hard, because it is, I don't think that it's actually turning. Whatever, I'm not going to start it over. So anyways, yellow is a very weak genetic in beta, so it actually wants to always hopscotch out or lighten. It's very easy to break, so it's very difficult to get in there, but it's an incomplete red. We'll just move on from that. So I purposefully dismantled this here, this yellow, right? And I crossed this bloodline of mine into a one that has a standard red base, right? Which is usual for this. You actually use the reds as an enhancement factor to bring in the rich black that you like on these BSGs. So anyways, you can see here on this generation, the red. So here I achieved yet even better markings, and even the average was way higher, right? And so because this unclicked, it went back to red. But what else did it do? It gave this red the ability to unclick and turn into the hardest color to actually get in, which, like, the hardest, like, you rarely see anyone in the world with this. This was not just a feat within, like, the United States. You don't see anyone doing any of this stuff. So but so as far as Asia goes, right, you rarely, even to this day, see hardly anyone capable of achieving this, especially not on their own. So because they don't a lot of breeders, even though they're in Asia, they don't understand these concepts like this, and they can't make it work. This is very truthful. This is, you could dive in, and, even if you're not in beta, you can dive in and look for yourself. But anyways, so, and a specimen like this too, at the time, I mean, you're looking at hundreds. So anyway though, so this not only bred consistently, but you can see how understanding how you got to a certain point might be pretty important, right? But the yellow unclicks with the red, so then turns red, but gave it the instability to be able to be orange. Then this same siblings, and this is why I like this one so much, is you can see the traits on all of these next ones. So you can see that they are in fact from the same pairing due to the instability I created within these two bloodlines. Now, this was not mated with another individual and crossed into this mated with another individual. This was a very, very large process. So I'm summing all this up for you guys in a way that would make sense quickly. So anyways, you can see here the fins. You can see that they actually are matching. So this was actually from the same generation here. These would be considered vampire visually. So now let's say that you actually sought out to purchase a real pure vampire line, right? So would these two vampires, if you were just looking at this online and you're like, oh wow, I really want to get those. I want to work with vampire stuff. Cool. Okay, but now when you breed these, you're actually going to be producing some of this. So see what I mean here? You can't say, oh, hey, I'm going to be looking at the fish only, even if there's two, and I'm going to breed them and magically produce what I wanted. No, instead you're actually going to see so few vampire, it's not even funny. So that is a great example, and granted, I did actually end up stabilizing this and mass producing these, but this took me several generations. And I did get it, but anyway though, so, and I've got videos and stuff of that too, but so now let me show you the exact same generation as these two here. Each one of these, and you can see the fin right there, each one of these is siblings. Now the difference is this one here is an easy, at the time, $550 fish. $350 minimum. And you might think, oh wow, that's so crazy, but the reality of it is these small flecks that you see right here, and when you guys look in the comments section to actually see the crisp clear imaging, those flecks actually stayed all through adulthood until the fish died. That's unheard of. Every single one of my ones that I had, they would at most, on some examples, get a little bit bigger, and that's it. It would never bleed into becoming a solid blue fish again. Almost all the time, you will see breeders who are into this type of deal talking about how these small flecks are temporary. That's not true. That is bullshit. Pardon my French here. That is an excuse. That's an excuse for them to not do their job breeding properly and not running a proper program. Instead, they're just in it for the money and the fast buck, taking pictures when they're only 3.5 months old so that you can see all the little fine dust, but realistically, it's just bigger markings coming in. So that is something that, or fading away. That's something for you guys, if you are in beta, to actually keep in mind when you're looking at all this stuff. Trust me, the person who landed up getting some of my BSG stuff, she actually told me she just gave up on it entirely after, because I was not able to, there was a really bad accident that caused me to lose so much of my stock. It was out of my control. I was actually paying someone to store all of my breeding stock in my genetic library on a whole nother property. I had 2 farms going, but whatever. That I had a very massive operation with this stuff. So anyways, I sent her everything that I could to get everything back up and going, since she said that she wanted to actually do, take all this stuff for the long haul. I was like, well, just because I'm not working with it doesn't mean that it needs to just die. So anyway, though, she tried referencing fish from Indonesia, fish from Thailand, and she had the same complaint every single time. They are not upholding to the standard of what you had. They just bleed out into nastiness, and I'm not seeing the results that I want. I'm not even getting the offspring that I want. And that's because they're playing a game with you. They're not actually giving you quality. They are selling you cheap shot images at an ideal time to try and make it look like something it's not. But that's besides the point. So now let's get back to cichlid stuff, right? So imagine you can see the journey that all this goes on, and then all of this is the same generation. Now what are these? Okay, so this here was actually, like, bar none, the best Nemo I think I've ever seen. And when you guys look down in the comments and stuff, if you're into betas, you will recognize that this is way over half moon, which was not uncommon for me. You can see here, over half moon. Oh wait, over half moon, over half moon, over half moon. So that in and of itself is actually extremely difficult, but just the same. So, and I got it to where it was roughly a 75% consistency rate on any one of my bloodlines that it was going to be over half moon. So that is, that too is something that's deemed as pretty impeccable. Like, that it is not easy. That's like Asia status stuff, for shows. But just the same, so you can see here, you got the yellow, the black, and then the yellow, the red, a little bit of black, right? So if you only saw these two fish, you would think, okay, so those are Nemo, right? They look Nemo. You wouldn't really know what they came from. Yet, here's the deal. This carries the genes for these. So if you only saw this, purchasing it, putting it into a koi, like Koi Galaxy, like let's say that you only saw then these two. Let's say you only saw those 4 fish, and you got some females that look like this, and then this boy, and you're like, okay, cool, so now I'm going to create, you know, a Koi Galaxy or Koi Nemo candy line, right? So, okay, great, but now let's assume that it's not from this same bloodline, right? Because I helped everyone who purchased fish from me already understand all this, but so let's say that this was a totally unrelated line. You're not actually going to get what you thought you were going to get, and you're going to see hiccups of this. Not very many, but it will be there. So what that's going to do is it's going to dirty results. It's going to actually throw you a roadblock, and then you may think that you have something good, but here's what happens next. Because the genetics are just a genetic hiccup, and it's already partially broken because the breeding itself didn't actually stay consistent with the genetics that it carried. This is a very important concept for you guys to understand. If you are purchasing, even for cichlids, all of this is very, very compatible with cichlid stuff, and I hope you guys can see why here. Like, you're going and you're just buying these boys that everyone's selling, right? So you can see why purchasing a male without understanding the background could be so devastating, right? Because what you see is actually not what you got. So this is a concept that Asia uses all the time, and I mean all the time, as does Germany. So this concept here is what I like to call the genetic spread, and that's what I'm going to make the title of this video as well. So I'm going to put everything that's the same generation in focus here. That is the genetic spread of one generation. Yet that bloodline was so powerful that I wound up with about 20% this. That is usually absolutely not achievable, right? And then almost every other one of them, there was so few cellos in the realm of these. Or just juicy red. Like red that would be so red, you're like, wow, that's some like hot rod lipstick status. I don't know, but it's insane. I moved those videos onto another drive, and I didn't have time to sit there and dig all that up. But just the same, I have a whole terabyte of all my genetic histories. But so, just the same. Let's say that it was then that juicy red with just the blackest black you've ever seen, right? And then a few white spots. And then you were like, okay, cool, so that's a really beautiful koi. Now I'm going to go breed it to a koi, but you're not going to create more koi. It's going to go towards this. And then you're going to think that you're on a new mission now. Oh, well, that's really beautiful, so I'm going to chase that. But you're actually then going to be set back to this. And in the meanwhile, you're actually diluting the quality of the fish. So you're going to wind up in a really bad spot because you didn't understand what the back history was. If you did, you would know that that fish here is actually a washout if you try and bring it back here. If you took what you had from there and realized what it was, you would know the right way to go, and in which case you would succeed instead of failing. So again, you could correlate this with OB. You could correlate this with pure bloodlines as far as impurities, right? So if you had a bloodline like this and there's impurities going, you could have an impurity all the way back here, and then you're getting up to here and you're like, oh wow, this looks great. But in reality, these are impurities back here that were just slowly washed out. But yet when you breed these, you're gonna see results that you're like, I don't really understand what I'm seeing here. And it's not always an impurity, but more often than not, it actually is. So you won't really understand what you're seeing, but what you're seeing is that your line is actually not pure. Which is also how I detected the yellow blaze being hybrid. You know what I mean? It's like, it's all a system. It's all a system. So once you get used to following these kinds of patterns and mindsets, you're able to understand and not be blindsided by people, including hopefully you guys that are in betas are really paying attention to what I'm showing here, because this is like a perfect example of not understanding what you're doing. And also this, as far as like, if I didn't just explain all this to you. So this trick here is played non-stop in Asia. Just consistent, because they know you don't know this stuff. So they're counting on it, because if they can keep playing this game of shuffling things around, you'll never succeed. Because these genetics here, if you're not actually running a true bloodline, you will not achieve this. Never. It will not happen. And even if you fluke did, which I'm here to say really firmly, you actually wouldn't. I had people all over the world actually messaging about this fish. So people in Malaysia, all over. I got friends in Thailand. They were all like, what? Because at the time too, this was like so unheard of. And you see the very perfect white tips. I mean, this whole fish in and of itself was just like, bing. So, I mean, I had people offering me for this one $350 ample times, and I said no, and I ended up using him, and that's what ended up leading to this. So, anyway though, so you guys can see though, even with cichlids, why this is important. And that's what I wanted to do for the people that I'm sharing this to for cichlids, is realizing that even though these are betas, it is all relevant. So if you're purchasing a bloodline that you're like, oh yeah, it's kind of a, you know, who knows if this seller's actually, you know, kosher, then you're breeding it all out, and magically you're getting these genetic hiccups back here, because your breedings will always have what I call a genetic spread. A genetic spread is vitally important to understand. What should or shouldn't you see in each breeding for what you're doing? So this spread here is right on, like, it couldn't be more on the money for what it was than you could. I mean, it legit couldn't have been better. It was, and I'm confident, this was exact to what you would want to see. Percentage-wise, immaculate. So, anyways, though, for you guys to also understand, most bloodlines of these, in order to get examples like this, even from some of the best breeders in Asia, they would get 5% or less, not 20. So, just the same. And you guys watched me on this very same generation, for those of you guys who have been following me for a long time. I had so many like this, it wasn't even funny. I sold probably close to 100 like that, and it was only a one. So, because I produced a lot of betas, but just the same. Hopefully this helps you guys understand, though, why what you see isn't what you get. And if you're dealing with cichlids too, imagine this history here, but with OB. And here you are purchasing this, thinking that you're actually, you know, like looking at that. So that's what you took it for, but it's actually not. And so then you're messing up your future generations, because you didn't understand the back history of those genetics. You just saw, let's just say, for example, here, red, but you didn't understand that it actually had a muddy, a muddy past on there. And so you're like, okay, cool, so I'm going to purchase that and I'm going to be breeding it here. But little did you know, they very quickly and easily could have confused you and threw in a kink to it and then just selected out what they wanted to sell it. So, again, you got to understand the lineages of your fish, and you have to be able to truly trust whoever you're getting fish from. This concept here can also be for geckos. Absolutely. If you think it can't, that's very foolish. This is like consistent. Even if you're looking at dogs, genetic flashbacks and stuff like that is very common. Like this concept here is bar none just like vital for you to understand. Vital. But again, it's very, very important to understand back histories and how the genetics came to be what they are. And that's why you see like dogs, horses, and such like that have actual pedigrees and stuff like that, is so that you can see that information. So, I mean, I'm extremely thorough. So, I mean, I have way more than this in this journey. But just the same though, I wanted to be able to actually show you guys a good demonstration, and I thought that this was a good example because it's the most extreme, which it makes it easier for all of you guys to see and understand quickly. So again, I hope you guys like this video. Please pay attention to this because it is just vital. Vital. You cannot get where you want to go in your breeding programs unless if you understand you're working with clean genetics. It's vital. And so I understand, I get it, I do. It's very hard to get clean genetics. It is not easy. So whether it's, illness susceptibility, whether it's visual, defects, whether it's impurities, whatever it is not easy to find someone who did the work properly to have the genetics clean so that you can then make pre-calculated decisions and understand where you're going to get why and how. So again, hopefully you guys can use this concept that I'm showing you here, and I really hope, like I said, I hope I'm helping you guys in explaining some of this stuff. I know I've never seen videos that pertain to this at all. So as a matter of fact, I'm kind of gauging that based on what I'm going to actually be showing you guys is, could you guys go find it somewhere else or not? So I'm trying to show you guys all the tools that you need that would be applicable, that are typically things breeders would absolutely not show you. So anyway though, I hope you guys all have a good day.